Tonight, we're going to have the Coach of the Year accepting the trophy for his former team, right? Is that what we're going to see tonight, you think?
Yeah, I think Dwayne Casey is a pretty strong lock, just like I think James Harden for MVP is a pretty strong lock.
If you could choose to give out the award based on April and May and June play, who would be the MVP choice for you, Chris?
Oh, I think it has to be LeBron. That postseason was one of his best. And look, I voted for Harden and I was comfortable with it. It was just LeBron during the regular season was just too indifferent defensively a lot, but the way he strapped that team on his back for the toughest Eastern Conference playoffs he's had in a long time, I would give it to him if we factored that in.
Where does his free agency stance stand right now, Chris? Walk me through it.
It's hard to get any kind of read on it, and it's hard to even guess. I mean, you're just kind of reading tea leaves sort of at this point. And, what you can do is look at everybody else's. That's kind of the best way to look at LeBron's free agency because he always goes to a place that has as good or better a chance to win a championship as the place he's leaving. That's been the history of LeBron James. And, Kawhi, I don't think Kawhi gets dealt anywhere, whether it's the Eastern Conference, the Lakers. I mean, there's a lot of smoke screens out there right now. I mean, now the latest is kind of Kawhi's not going to be traded out west. People that have dealt with the Spurs have often told me that they're not really all that concerned with where Kawhi goes. They're concerned with the best return that they can get back. So I'm a little skeptical of the idea that the Spurs are just ruling out half the league in the talks about Kawhi Leonard. But wherever they decide to move him to ultimately, it's not going to be an accelerated process. I mean, we saw Kyrie Irving dealt in late August last year. It wouldn't surprise me at all if it played out that way with Kawhi Leonard. The same thing with Paul George. I mean, his decision will happen a lot faster, but I've been saying for weeks, if not months, really since the Oklahoma City season ended, they have a quiet confidence in Oklahoma City that Paul George thoroughly enjoyed his season there. And, if you talk to people around him, you talk to people that know Russell Westbrook, the relationship between Russ and Paul George is really strong. They've spent time in the L.A. area working out together this summer. I don't discount the strong possibility that Paul George, on some kind of deal, maybe it's on a full 5-year max, but on some kind of deal, goes back to Oklahoma City for another season.
So let's hit the LeBron part first of what you just said. Chris Mannix of Yahoo Sports joining us here. Is there even a Dumb and Dumber chance of LeBron telling the Cavs, pick up my option, I'm staying put for 1 year?
I only think they tell him that, or he tells them that, if he has something in place where he'd be traded there. I don't think he's, look, he can get the same amount of money, if not more. I'm not, all that versed in the salary cap gymnastics that teams are doing nowadays to clear cap space, but he'd get as much money, if not more, just going back to the Cavs. So the only reason to opt into his contract is because whether it's Houston or somebody else, he's figured out a way to get to that place without, basically gutting that team of everything they have.
So that would require him, I mean, is it tampering if he's the one calling other teams, Chris?
No, I mean, like one thing the NBA just basically, I mean, I don't know when they decided this, but it probably around 2008 when, guys really started palling around these Olympic teams. They decided there's no such thing as player tampering. Owners can't talk. They get tough on, executives talking to agents ahead of time. They don't want to hear about pre-set up meetings.
Or Magic talking to Kimmel, dropping a joke to Kimmel.
Even like, that reported meeting with the Lakers, talking to their staff about tampering. From what I was told, it was like a meeting of the staff, but everybody was kind of talking to Magic Johnson, basically saying, don't, go rogue at all, during this process because we've already got burned once on this. So, that kind of stuff, the NBA is as tight as they can be on, but players doing stuff, they're just not going to police that.
So LeBron is the one who's calling Daryl Morey to figure this out, or he calls Chris Paul to figure out, like, whether
I'm sure I don't think LeBron's calling Daryl Morey. I think that it's player on player, and LeBron reaching out to Paul George, LeBron talking to Chris Paul. These conversations have to be happening, by now. They happen all the time amongst players. Maybe DeMarcus Cousins is looped in on these, text chains or whatever they are. But there's always a story behind how the kind of sausage gets made out here. And part of that story is always guys talking to each other. So, maybe it's him talking to Chris Paul to relays it to, Daryl Morey. I mean, there's stuff that goes on behind the scenes that gets this kind of thing done.
Chris Mannix of Yahoo joining me here. What do you make of the report that LeBron says, "Don't PowerPoint me, bro"? Like I don't need that when it's all up and running for the free agency period.
The being wooed part of it is really for first-time free agents and first-time free agents on the level of LeBron James. When we saw, Kevin Durant do it. I mean, Kevin Durant was really a first-time free agent when he invited all those people out to the Hamptons. LeBron did it his first time around when everybody came out to sell him. Once you go through that, I mean, even Carmelo spoke about this back in, 2011 or 12 when he signed that deal. He's like, I never want to go through that again. It's an exhaustive process. It's an emotional process. It's not fun. I mean, guys want to do it because at the end of their contract, they're 27, 28 years old. They want teams out there drooling over them. But once they get through it, they don't want to do it again. And LeBron significantly scaled it back the last time he was a free agent. Now it's going to be non-existent.
All right. So how do you see it? What's your best guess in how it plays out? Is it quick? Is it long? Does he draw it out? What do you think?
You got to go off history, Rich. And I think the first time around, it was like July 12th. The second time around, it was July 8th. It was like an average of like 9.5 days of drawn-out stuff. I would imagine the same thing takes place. I mean, he's got to, unless he has that deal on the table, which I'm skeptical of. I think he signed somewhere as a free agent. Unless he has that deal on the table, I think we're looking at the same timetable, 9th or 10th or 11th.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.